It's not project management that makes a successful digital transformation. It's actually project leadership. What's the difference between project management and project leadership? That's what we'll talk about here today. My name is Eric Kimberling. I'm the CEO of Third Stage Consulting. We're an independent and tech-agnostic consulting firm that helps clients throughout the world with their digital transformation journeys. And when we're helping clients through their digital transformations, one of the common themes that we hear from them is that we need to make sure we have strong project management to ensure this project stays on track and delivers the results we expect. And that is true. You need strong project management, you need good governance controls, all that good stuff, but none of that matters if you don't have strong project leadership. And those are two very different things and not always the same person or the same skill set to provide that. So what I want to do today is talk about what the difference is between project management and project leadership with the hopes that you'll ensure that you've addressed both of those roles and both of those needs on your project. And if you'd like to learn more about what it takes to be successful in your digital transformation, I encourage you to read our ebook for free on our website called Lessons from 1000 Digital Transformations. You could read that by scanning the QR code right here or go to the links below. First, it helps to understand what is the difference between project leadership and project management. Project management talks a lot about how we're going to get things done. It's about milestones, it's about Gantt charts, it's about tracking budgets, tracking statuses, all that stuff, very important stuff. But project leadership doesn't focus on the how, it focuses on the why. Why are we doing what we're doing, and what are the major decisions that will ultimately affect the direction and outcome of the project? So we're not focused on the granular decision making at the project leadership level, we're focused on the why and making sure there's a clear connection between the execution of how we get things done and the overall strategy of the organization. So one way to think about it is project leadership is sort of the conduit between overall leadership and executive direction and the execution of your digital transformation. That gap is where project leadership steps in. Project leaders focus on connecting the dots, as I mentioned before, connecting the dots between the execution of the day-to-day project and the overall strategy and vision of the organization. It's really easy for strong project management to get off track, not because they're not good project managers, but because they don't have the right strategic guardrails in place to ensure that the project is supporting the bigger, longer-term vision and goals of the project. So project leadership focuses on the why we're doing the things we're doing on the project to support the project, whereas project management is more focused on the details of the tasks, of the statuses, and that sort of thing. So it's important to recognize those two differences in order to understand and make sure that you have both roles filled on your project. So this raises the question of why project leadership is so important in digital transformation, and why is it arguably more important than good project management. I mentioned before that even with good project management, you can still get off track, not because the governance and controls aren't in place, but because you're misaligned with the overall strategy of the organization. And that's one of the biggest roles of project leadership, is to ensure that the project stays in sync with the overall strategy. And not only that, but project leadership goes well beyond technology. A lot of times project management is more myopically focused on how to deploy pieces of technology and user training and things that are very granular in nature, whereas project leadership is more focused on how do we keep our stakeholders aligned? How do we ensure that we're organized the way we need to? What are our big rock types of decisions we need to make as it relates to standardizing or changing operations or roles and responsibilities? What are the major process improvements that we expect to see from this project? Those are the high-level guiding principles that will guide and ensure that the project stays on track, and that's why these two roles are very different and very important in different sorts of ways, and they need to stay in sync throughout the entire project. So what are the common warning signs that suggest that you might not have good enough project leadership? Well, one is if you don't have anyone other than your project manager managing the project. You could have an executive sponsor or an executive steering committee, but that isn't necessarily the same as a good project leader. You need someone that can make decisions on behalf of the organization and on behalf of the project team, and someone that can provide day-to-day guidance and direction to the overall project. And it's not safe to assume that a project manager can also do project leadership, because oftentimes those are two very different skill sets. Project managers involves PMP certifications and other types of training, whereas project leadership requires more of a business understanding and a higher EQ, to be candid. They need to be the people that can navigate disagreements and navigate the nuances and gray areas of projects, whereas project management is more focused on the black and white, either or sorts of functions within a project. So if you don't have both roles filled and clearly identified in your project, that's a big warning sign. Beyond that, if you start to see things like a disengaged leadership team, leadership's not involved in making decisions around operations or the way we're going to be organized in the future, that's another warning sign. If people are resisting change at a pretty widespread scale, that suggests you probably don't have strong enough project leadership. So those are just a few of the warning signs to watch for, but it's important to know that if you don't have both of these roles filled, you are going to have trouble during your implementation, and more trouble than the average implementation is going to have. So what is it we can do to ensure that we stay on track and that we provide the project leadership that the project needs? Well, first and probably most obviously is make sure you have a strong project leader. And again, that's probably a different person than just your project manager. That project leader is going to look beyond just what the project manager looks at. They're looking at the business, the organization, the operations, the business case, the value optimization, all that stuff is what a project leader does. Good project leadership involves looking at and investing in change management, making sure that user adoption, communications, change impacts, all that stuff is being addressed in parallel and as part of what the project manager focuses on. And another important sign of strong project leadership and something you want to do to fortify your project leadership is make sure that you don't just have one project leader, but you also involve leaders throughout the organization at the mid-level of management in particular. If you do those things, that's going to help improve your chances of success. And if you'd like to learn more about how to be successful in your digital transformation, please download our ebook called Lessons from 1,000 Digital Transformations. You can find that by scanning the QR code right here, or you can go to the links below. So I hope you found this information useful and hope you have a great day.